This is Chapter 3 of Unfortunate Citizen. For anyone who's ever been around metalworking, they must remember the particular smells of the job. The distinct sharp odor of burnt steel and oil combined with leather working gear is something strong and overpowering at times, but not always unpleasant. At least on this day, a week after the celebration of Arrival Day, it was a smell of ambition and machinations coming to light for a small group of people. Chief among these people was Antonio, the Prince of Florence. He had entered this workshop himself on a mission for help, and he was not going to take no for an answer. As he was led through by the receptionist who assured him that Mr. Biagio, the owner and chief of operations, was available, he took in everything he saw. The machines he had studied days before coming to ensure that what he needed and wanted was possible. Yes, he thought, there are the lathes, and there are the mills, and the drill presses, and the metal bar stock, and hydraulic presses, and everything he needed. After just a few minutes, the woman stopped walking and spoke briefly with a large man next to a workbench. He had been giving instructions and feedback to a boy of about 16, no doubt a member of the apprenticeship program at his high school. Many high school students in the city would substitute a class or two for apprenticeship in one of Florence's vital industries. Interrupted from his work, Biagio was momentarily irritated. Once he recognized Antonio, he realized his mistake and smiled broadly. His enormous arm extended to offer a large hand of cracks and crevices filled with oil, giving him a look almost like he was a drawing and not a man. He spoke in a surprisingly nasally voice, saying, "It is a pleasure to meet you, sir. If I had known you were going to be here, I would have ensured I was prepared, washed up and not wearing a buckskin apron." Upon mentioning this, he removed it and rolled it into a ball and set it on the bench. Realizing he had abandoned the boy, he smacked him on the back and said, "Go on, say hello to your prince, son. It isn't every day we get a visit on our burden from those up high." Antonio took notice of the implications of Biagio's word choice, but decided to wait and address them in private. "Hello, sir. It's good to have a chance to meet you," the boy said sheepishly. "The pleasure is all mine," Antonio said. "Please, don't be interrupted. I know you must have a lot of work to do. What is it you are working on?" "Oh, it's just the blade to a shovel, but Mr. Biagio had pointed out that the neck thing that the handle goes into is way too short. Handles would just break off in it if you tried to actually pick up a load of gravel." "Well, apart from that, it is excellent. Good job. I can see that you'll be critical to keeping up our supply of tools to the rural cities." Yes, real potential," said Biagio with a grin. "So many of these kids are great, but I am sure you have something more important than just reviewing the work we're producing. They're bureaucrats for something that mundane, I'm sure." "You are a sharp man, Mr. Biagio. Could we speak in your office?" Of course. Just follow me." Antonio smiled at the boy and said goodbye as he left, following the large man to the back of the shop, where a wooden door with a glass pane led to a small office. Very humble and modest for such a successful business, it held just a simple desk, bookshelves of technical manuals, and an extra chair. Nothing was cushioned or fancy, but rather strictly utilitarian. The only decoration was a painting of a farm field of corn with a bank of stormy clouds behind. "Please sit," said Biagio, as he gestured to the chair across from the desk. It was uncomfortable, but Antonio did not expect this to take very long. "Mr. Biagio, I will not waste your time, as I find it far too valuable for that. I do just want to comment that you are doing an excellent job in staying involved and educating the youth. It is so important that we stay competitive through our technical opportunities, Florencians." "Absolutely, sir. I couldn't agree more. I know that we have an opportunity here that the other cities don't. All this electrical equipment out in some mining village up in the mountains would just be useless dust collectors. I like to think that I'm providing something for all of our luxury with the nuclear power." Yes, we are, and I think that you'd like to hear some good and bad news." Biagio stiffened. Antonio had already suspected him of being a Democrat, with his ideas of supporting his fellow citizens of Europa, not to mention the backhanded words just shortly before, and Biagio must have feared he went too far. "Power has not been shifted to a democratic government yet, Mr. Biagio, but don't worry, you didn't offend me enough to do anything to your business." I actually want to take some pretty severe actions to support it and make you much wealthier. The only catch is that there is a risk to this, and I need you on board for it. Now, please don't be vague, Biagio said. I know I may have come off as rude, but my perspective is different. Please, tell me what's happening. I thought that everything in the economy was fine. It is far more complicated than that. It is funny you mentioned that the privilege of the nuclear power, because that is actually, and I trust you keep this in confidence, right? Of course, I wouldn't dream of sharing anything secret. Excellent, said Antonio. That nuclear power that you said is such a blessing to be shared, well, it isn't permanent. It feels that way because it has been a constant over so many generations, the way the computer is fully regulated and performance maintenance independent of any engineers. It can't break down, it's not possible. But the fuel is another issue. Biagio went silent, and the implications of what Antonio was saying seemed to finally be taking effect. The revelation that the entire economy of Florence could be decimated, and the supply of manufactured goods would be shifted to a purely manual artisan system that would leave Biagio without work was terrifying. The shop, with all its equipment, would become those dust collectors that Biagio had called them. Antonio continued. Now, this critical point where the power output is down below what we currently need is due to be here in just 2 months. But there is a way to save us. It is drastic, it is daring, but it is possible. It requires all the people of Florence to come together, workers and business owners. And this is where you come in. Anything, sir, anything to stop this. Why so soon? Why not bring up this issue a year, 5 years, 50 years ago? Because the system is automated. No one checks it. It is taken for granted like the sun rising in the morning or water flowing through the river. That nuclear power plant has become a force of nature in our minds. Just something that would always be because it always has been. But I forced my way into the computers and found the truth. We have to do something now. Now, what do I have to do? Are we going to try and revamp the methane infrastructure? I can make pipes. We can make heating systems to speed decomposition in the lagoons. Maybe we can make greater mining efforts to refuel the reactor? Antonio shook his head, making theatrics of the issue. He was grim and spoke quietly. There is no uranium anywhere that we have found. Thorough surveys in all regions of the habitable zone have found not even a trace. We are dry here. No coal, no oil, and no uranium. We could burn wood for power in a steam generator, but we would cut down every tree in 10 years to keep up at the rate we're at. Biagio began to grow frantic, trying to come up with some idea to save the city from destitution. Hydroelectric? The lake in the center of the city already has a dam. We could use it to generate power. We would if we could, but copper for turbines is simply too rare. Some data from satellite suggested a good region for it, 300 miles from the edge of the habitable zone to the north. Now, we don't have any good options, but there is an option. We globalize the methane supply and centralize it to Florence. The only source of energy, beside the reactor and burning pine wood, was the collection of sewage and food trash from humans and animals into sealed lagoons that would decompose and release methane. Once collected, the methane could be used to power steam or internal combustion engines. Each city had its own lagoon for generating gas, and in most settlements it was used to heat homes, stoves, and ovens, or be used in steam tractors and trains. However, not even the large population of Florence could generate enough for the current energy consumption. Globalize it, but how? The cities are independent and they need their methane for their own uses. They would never give it up. And what about the infrastructure? It would be tough to pressurize and pump it as far as we have to. That is a secondary concern, but what you first mentioned is what I'm worried about now. We need the rights to the gas before we build anything to use it. And you know just how independent each city is here. There's only one way. Antonio stopped talking and waited for Biagio to come to the same conclusion that he had walked in with. The mixture of truth and lies was potent, and it was not long until Biagio's eyes widened. We take it, he said quietly. Antonio nodded and said, We take it. Without a word, Antonio removed an envelope from his shirt and placed it on the desk. He got up to leave and walked out without looking back. He knew Biagio would let the secret out of the 2-month deadline, An intentional lie, but 4 years didn't instill the sort of urgency that Antonio needed. And this intention was abundantly clear to anyone who saw the contents of that envelope. It contained schematics downloaded from the comprehensive archives of the ship modules. Schematics for belt-fed machine guns. It's the end to Chapter 3 of Unfortunate Citizen.